but I don't think that we will see a proper alt season anymore. I think that time has passed. I think we will see some excesses. AI is just automation that is getting, implemented in systems that can reason to an extent, to a bigger or smaller extent. If we just think about trading generally, like there's so much human emotions coming in if prices go up or down, that actually make that so many of the investors, including myself.
Welcome to another episode of Insider Club, where we dive deep into the world of crypto trading and Web3 innovations. Today, I am thrilled to have Alexandra Overgak with us. Alexandra is the founder and CEO of Truth Labs, where she is building an open access networking app to make Web3 events more efficient. She also a close friend to famous trader Alessio Rostani. They even collaborated on a YouTube video discussing crypto trading strategies. Alexandra, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Borislav. I am thrilled myself with the kind invite, and I'm super much looking forward to our talk. And it was wonderful, I would add, also to meet you just a little while ago at Ethereum Sofia.
Yes. It was
Great
nice.
to see you.
Alexandra, let's start with your journey. You have strong background in law. How did you first get in crypto back in 2017? And what attracted you from a traditional background in law and international relations to the Web3 world?
Yes, thank you for your question and for your interest. I will keep this short. So I think that what you see quite often with people in the social sciences, right? Lawyers, people that study political science, like myself, is that many of us are quite, let's say, idealistic, right? Ultimately, we want to become lawyers or we want to enter into politics. So especially when we're young, we're quite idealistic too. So I wanted to study those things and then actually become kind of like a professor or human rights lawyer or, enter up in politics internationally. And I've always been interested in technology as well. So during my couple of master's degrees that I was doing, I've done 2 masters actually. I researched a lot the AI matter. So this is already a couple of years ago, and how it impacts potentially people in the world. And I kind of like the conclusion that there were so many risks. I think that by now today, those risks are widely discussed online, and also offline, by the way. But this is a couple of years ago. And then I realized, okay, if it's not really the AI field that I want to work in, also from a legal and political perspective, what else do I want to do? And right in that time, it was the bull run of 2017. I had already been keeping an eye on Bitcoin from 2015. I really realized, whoa, these cryptocurrencies, like these weird things that are flowing in the air in a decentralized way, I was thinking, oh, this is so cool from a financial perspective. It can really help people, it can be an alternative to banks. And then slowly, as it goes with crypto and blockchain, right, you start to do more research. And you actually realize, whoa, this is a really big field and really big industry, and it can help people and the world so much. So anyway, that is kind of like how I started slowly to invest in crypto. And then later, I really realized I want to work in this industry and make the world better, kind of like, once again, from an ideological perspective. That's what happened.
Did you manage to invest in Bitcoin then?
Yes, of course. Bitcoin, Ethereum, can I say shitcoins? Some shitcoins too. Yes, of course. But by no means I'm rich or anything. Like, I'm the first one in my family to go to university. Like, I have a massive study debt still. So don't try to come to my house to rob me, because you won't find anything.
Okay, what exactly is Truth App and how it works?
Yeah, so you mentioned correctly that the Throat app is used at events, but actually I would say that our ambition is a little bit bigger than that. When I launched this thing together with our team and our investors and our community about 2 years ago, the idea was really to bring people in the crypto space, those that are working in it and those that are building in it, like from a professional perspective, to bring them together. I'm myself here in Italy, and a couple of years ago, I realized as well how hard it was to get in touch with crypto builders and with people that I wanted to connect with. Not everyone lives in New York or London, or Berlin. So I decided, also observing some of the business problems in our industry. We might get to that later, but fundamentally, before founding Trolled Labs, I was working on the business side of a wonderful UK blockchain company. And also there, I saw so many business problems that relate to connecting with the right people. And then I thought by myself, hey, if we can build something that is indeed open access and that can hopefully help people connect with one another, with those people that they are looking for the business purposes that you are after, like, wouldn't that be cool? Because from connections, so many other things can grow, right? Companies, collaborations, jobs. It's ultimately about finding opportunity and collaborating what our industry really, makes it flourish. So that's actually then what made me think about building this app. And indeed, the app is also used during events and conferences for networking. But it's a bigger kind of like ambition here to really bring people together from a business perspective in our industry, but also later in other industries, I would add that.
You've mentioned in your writings that Web3 needs systematic changes. Can you share some key insights on how business really works in Web3 industry today, especially the role of especially the role of intermediaries and why they are a problem?
Well, I would first of all say I could probably speak for an hour, so I will keep this super brief. Yeah. Okay. So if you work in business, I think in any type of industry, you often hear things like your network is your net worth, and all these types of like stupid cliche expressions. And what I've been realizing also in the Web3 industry is that personal connections and, where you are, who you know, where you live, what you look like, and where you go as an individual, all these things really matters for if you can connect once again with the right people, and if you can find that job or get that funding or, find that collaboration or fund the right project in case you're an investor. So what I mean with all of this is that we always think about Web3 and crypto as this kind of like decentralized, trustless space where everyone has free access to the tech and we can build, and it's free and open for everyone. But if you look at the business side of things, from where the stuff is being built, you actually see that there are so many big companies and other factors that all determine your chances for success. And that is, I think, a massive challenge. On top of that, of course, on the side of that, as you said, there are all the intermediaries, right? So for instance, if you want to find a right job, quite often you need, to connect with a headhunter, for instance. That's not a massive problem. But if you want to find maybe venture capital funding, not everyone has a network. So what you have to do is get in touch with brokers that help you. And then if funding comes out, the brokers get like a commission, right? Or of 5 or 10%. If you want to launch a token, you need to quite often use a centralized exchange if you want to do that, at least. And then you need to pay massive brokerage fees also there and listing fees. So what I mean to say is that, it's a massive paradox, so contradiction, that we always speak about trustless technology, open chances, blah, blah, blah. But then if you look at the business side of matters, and if you want to be successful in this industry, then the intermediaries come in, the access barriers and challenges. Another practical example that I will give, and I won't go on for too long, is also if you look at the data, right? For instance, there are very, very few female builders that actually lend funding. Like that is also like not only kind of like a challenge for some, because it's usually the men who hand out the funding, and men like to fund men, typically, generally. This is all general statements, right? But also it's an inefficiency, because if then also we look at the data, we see that female companies actually do extremely well. Generally, they do better than all male companies. So that is what I mean to say, is that where you see this kind of like challenges and barriers, they're not only oftentimes not fair, but they're also inefficient and not optimal for the industry as a whole. So that's my take on things, generally put.
Very interesting. That brings a question for our audience of traders and investors. What's the common misconception about Web3 projects that you've seen over the years?
Common misperception. I honestly think, generally that our perception, if we look at Web3 projects, what we typically see are the successful ones, even if then later they fail. But a Web3 project that we see on the market, or a coin, right, on the market, they have already had to step over so many hurdles, and they've had to hustle so much to even get there, that we kind of like think that that's the normality. But 9 out of 10 projects and 9 out of 10 startups actually fail. So then if we even look at the companies that then ultimately market, so many of those later also fail, right? Or the token goes nowhere, or there's like a rug pull or a security breach. So what I mean to say is that I'm super bullish on the Web3 space, but so many projects ultimately don't make it for very different reasons. So I think that we need to be aware of the sample bias that we see as external kind of like observers. This is really like a political answer, but maybe a practical thing, in my opinion, is I think that we see a lot of projects that are aimed at end users that are consumers. So obviously, if we think about business world and about businesses in general, there are businesses that operate more, where customers are other businesses, so B2C. Then you have other businesses that really work more with consumers. And then there's all sorts of other types of businesses. And why am I mentioning this? I think that when we look at projects over the last couple of years, we see a lot of businesses that are aimed at token holders and end users that are actually using the token or whatnot. But we don't really see a lot of businesses that also use tokens and that are actually running successful enterprises that are more focused at other businesses. And I believe that we need all of that. Ultimately, I would add on top of that, and this sounds a bit like an asshole, honestly, but I think there are too many bullshit projects out there that don't have actual utility. They're just aimed at, hype and hyping up the token and using marketing and key opinion leaders and influencers to actually make everyone else believe that they're running something that brings value to society or to people. But ultimately, they're just there to extract value. This is all very negative for someone who is an idealist. But I think we need to get rid of the latter.
Once my investor friend told me, look at the team behind a given product before investing. And let's talk about due diligence. When investing or trading in crypto projects, what are the essential steps you recommend for research to avoid scams or overhyped tokens?
That's a great question. And honestly, I would even take it a step back. So remember what I just said about the tokens that are on the market, right, that are listed on the exchanges, decentralized or centralized exchanges, that those are only a few, right, of the projects that we have seen. I think it's really important to take a step back and actually realize that before there is that launch, right, there is already multiple years sometimes and investment rounds where actually those projects have already been raising capital from professional investors, right? And from angel investors. So kind of like, let's say, kind of like accredited or rich people that are investing very early stage in startups. I would actually recommend anyone to maybe even consider investing in projects a little bit earlier on, and not only when a token hits the market. Of course, there's extra risk there, yes, but there's also massive more opportunity, because if you pick then a right project, you can have actually a lot more upside potential than when you even join upon listing, right? So take a step back and try to get in touch with projects even before the token generation event and the listings, I would say. But there, due diligence becomes even more important. You almost really have to really act like a professional investor. So indeed, as you said, look at the team. Are they reliable? Are they, let's say, good people? Are they knowledgeable? Do they have industry experience? Not everyone has, let's say, a Google logo next to their name or something, but I would really much recommend everyone to like kind of get in touch with the team. Even if they have a small community, by the way, it doesn't need to be a problem, because as I said, not every business is oriented at having a bunch of retail token holders, right? Look at the business model of the project, of the company. Can they make money either in crypto or in fiat? Like, is there something sustainable about their business model? Ultimately, if this project will remain, they need to make money in some way, right? Or crypto. So all these types of things matter. So look at projects before they're hitting and after they're hitting the market. Indeed, look at the project, look at the ability of the token, look at the founders and the team. What I would also recommend, and I can continue for like this forever, so I will keep this brief, but check if they have good industry connections, if they can talk properly, publicly, if they can sell their ID, right? If they are well connected, if they're going to events and to conferences, like, are they kind of like respected in the industry, yes or not? All these types of things really matter, because remember, ultimately, to make it as a project, it's not only about the product, it's not only about the team, but it's about the entire package. The odds are really against you as a project. 9 out of 10 startups fail. And that actually means that you, as an investor, you also have the odds against you. So you have to be extremely selective, in my opinion. And the cliche, do your own research.
Thank you for that answer. Another friend of mine once told me that private equity is the power, because everything that goes public on the stock exchange or a crypto exchange, for example, is already worthless. Building on that, how do you evaluate a project team and community during due diligence? Any red flags our listeners should watch out for?
Well, first of all, you have a lot of friends. That's actually nice. I wish I had that many friends. Anyway, to your question, yes, I wouldn't really say, in my opinion, that they are worthless, right? But most definitely, a lot of money is already made before a startup or a company or a project openly hits the market. On the other hand, it's normal because so much risk is also taken. So unless you actually had this mechanism, innovation would stop, right? Like, who else would fund it? Don't forget, it's very, very expensive to build this project. It requires risks from the founder's side too. Like, any founder that's a little bit good could easily have a well-paid job at a different type of company, right? We also need to respect that, I think, from an external perspective, that in order to build, you need to take risks, and that must be rewarded as well from a capitalist type of perspective. Now, to your question, I mean, I would say, first of all, that the community growth, as I just said, is not necessarily the key denominator anymore. I know that a couple of years ago, right, also the investors were always looking, how much Telegram followers do you have, or how many people are on your X account? And that is kind of like hollow these days. There's so many bots out there. It's so easy to inflate those numbers with fake followers, right? I think it's more about the industry connections that you have. And what could be a red flag, in my opinion, is that if you maybe even look at things like internal documentation, right, about a product or a project. So you go to their website and you look at their white paper, or you look at their news section, and you basically see that a lot of things are kind of like AI written, for instance. I think that is a massive red flag. If you basically, any type of indicator that really shows that they take things super easily and that they don't put enough care into matters, that is for me a really massive red flag. I know that sounds fake, but Yeah, if you see a pitch deck that looks shitty, like that's not a good thing. If you go to a website and you basically don't see any news updates about what the company is doing or where they're going, like that's not a green flag actually. So a lot can be said about this. Maybe if you have more specific questions, we can maybe discuss them in detail before I ramble on and on and on.
Okay, but when you invest in a shitcoin, do you read the white paper?
Depends on you. If you are busy and you are kind of like using crypto as a casino, I would actually suggest that you should go to a casino or to do some online gambling. Like, to be honest with you, it's a gamble, right? And if that's your cup of tea, you should do that. If you actually want to make money and be serious and kind of like help the space and help founders and make money whilst doing so, you should do your research. So I would say it's up to you as an investor.
In terms of technical due diligence, what tools or metrics do you use to value crypto projects?
Well, first of all, check if they have a good internet connection. No, that was a joke, just because we had some internet issues during this recording. No, let's be serious. I think that an important thing would be, if you are a little bit technical yourself, you can write code. You of course want to check their code. Is it open source? The smart contracts, do they look good in your opinion, or do you see all sorts of? I'm not a developer myself, but you definitely want to make sure that the smart contracts are in order. That's so that there is no, let's say, easily security breach. You can also always check and ask to the founders if they have done an audit with a proper company of their smart contracts. Another thing could be, if a project is already live, to just look them up right on, I don't know, software called June, for instance, June Analytics, I believe that they're called. You can always see, let's say, their on-chain activity, how much is actually happening. Another thing I would do as well, this is not super technical, but try to figure out which investors are backing this project. Are they like good investors, or are the founders bootstrapping, so paying for everything themselves? Because if you see that very, very, very good investors are actually behind this project, that is already a green flag as well. Sadly, I would say almost. So yeah, from a technical perspective, look at on-chain analytics, go through smart contracts. Once again, check the utility of the token. Maybe also think a little bit about which chain we are launching or they are launching their token. If it's kind of like a busy chain, yes or not, or if the chain is kind of dead. What type of ecosystem support we can expect from that chain. Because that is also very, very important, right? You don't want to launch a massively important token on a chain that is fundamentally kind of like that. And so there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, you should check. What do you think, Boris? Share your expertise with us.
Team leader must be a good salesperson. At the end of the day, what matters is how many times you sell your product.
I agree. Can I just add there one thing? I think personally that that's also what I said before, like the team. Are you going to events? Are you visible online? Of course, there's a bunch of very, very clever people that are kind of like building anonymously. But sadly, I don't think that that is compatible with 2025, 2026 anymore. I think that if you want to build a legitimate company, we need to move to a professionalization of this industry. Builders need to be visible. Builders need to be able to sell. Builders need to be able to pitch. Builders need to be able to connect and leverage industry connections. Because without that, you're not going to make it anymore. Maybe a couple of years ago, yes, when there was still all the hype and all the money floating around. But with a market that is becoming more and more professional, with investors that have been burned multiple times by prior cycles and by rug pulls and by all sorts of scams and by disappointments, the industry is materializing and maturing. So definitely, that the team leader and just generally the team, it's very, very important alongside the technical matters that we also discussed.
From the initial, you mentioned a lot of business issues, a lot of project issues. From the initial idea to launching the application, what were the biggest challenges you faced in developing Truth? Because this will help us to understand the other crypto projects.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be honest here with you. Like, I am not a technical person, right? I am a CEO of a project or of a company, of a startup, and I cannot even code one line of code. And if I'm admitting this is actually extremely vulnerable to admit. But this didn't initially really help with investors. They were like, what the fuck, this woman? Like, what she wants with her idea? She cannot even build it herself. Like, she never worked in a tech company, you know. That is actually that didn't work in my favor, understandingly. But for every problem there is a solution, right? So it's about finding the right investors that have believe in you, getting that money, then finding the right people that can help you execute it, building a project, building a product, check what doesn't work, you know, pivoting, all sorts of things. Of course, you can do that also without money. Once again, you don't necessarily need $1 billion to build a company, right? Specifically now with AI coding and all that type of stuff. We never did that, but it's very, very easy to actually test a product market fit of an idea that you're building, specifically if it's a commercial idea. Of course, if it's more, I don't know, a for good idea, let's say, oh, I want to enable charity donations in crypto in, I don't know, in a country like Australia. I don't know, just a random example. Like, there's a different type of product market fit and testing and user research that you need to do than when you build a commercial app, for instance. So yeah, that was maybe a challenge, the non-technical part. I'm going to be super honest with you, because why not? Another challenge, but also an opportunity, is me being a woman. I already referred to this earlier. Like, there are not so many female, let's say, CEOs.
Yeah, definitely. This is a male-dominated industry. As a woman leading in a male-dominated field, share your experience and challenges.
This is a very, very sensitive topic, right? It's so easy to say the wrong thing and everyone, you know, falls over you. I'll just speak and share my experience. So I think that Bitcoin space is very open. Everyone can make it as long as you push hard enough and you do your best. Like, I do sincerely believe that. So it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, if you are, I don't know, green, white, black, or purple. Like, anyone can make it, okay? Of course, we face some challenges, as you rightly put it. So what we typically see, specifically in terms of investments with professional investors, like, I love most professional investors, but sadly, there's also a bunch of guys who are not that nice and who like to kind of like only give money to guys that look like them. Like, statistically, that happens pretty often. Not with everyone, once again, but it's well documented also in the scientific research that a lot of investors typically hand the checks to people that look like them. So if there is mostly male investors, what you then typically see is that most money statistically goes to male-led project as well, okay? Now, there's also female funds. I will immediately put that out there, right? For minorities, for instance, for females as well. But what you typically see there is that those checks, as we call them, actually go to for good projects or impact projects. So you need to be building something that's not capitalistic, but for good per se, like something, I don't know, a charity or whatever type of educational project. So, and me, like my company, our project falls in between. Like, we are a capitalist type of company, a for-profit company, but we also try to do good. So what I typically see is that it can be sometimes challenging to raise capital from certain people that actually are more interested in me as a woman, if you get what I mean, than to actually give me the money. Or you see that, you know, you are not qualifiable for good initiatives that are often led by women or that are aimed at women and minorities. That is another type of thing out there. in terms of the challenges. Yeah, for the rest, everything has been good. It's been a really cool actually journey, and I've found a lot of epic people from all over the world, from Kazakhstan to South Korea to the United States to Nigeria to Scotland to the Netherlands. I found so many amazing people actually. So just a couple of challenges, but for the rest, everything has been epic.
You told me a curious story that your mother worked at the oldest stock exchange in the world, the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. Can you share any interesting stories?
Yeah, that is actually true. So my mom was one of the first traders there in the 1980s.
Nice.
She was basically with 4 females and 400 men. And what was really, she had a lot of fun actually back then. She had a lot of fun. She was always joking around with the guys. Of course, lots of guys were also trying to hit on her and stuff like that. Like a lot of partying was going on. It was the time where a lot of money could be made. Then, of course, at some point, she got pregnant of me and kind of like she stopped working there. But what I think is interesting from this is that, I work in a male-dominated industry, although more women, by the way, are also active in our industry. Don't underestimate that. Like it's actually like 10, 20 or 30% depending on which type of role you're looking at, right? So more marketing and more tech, etc. So there are actually more and more women. Also, if you go to the events, you really see that. But anyway, what you now see when you go to the stock exchange in Amsterdam, right? You still see almost only men. So what I'm trying to say is that certain industries, in my opinion, maybe attract just more men than women. And maybe crypto is just one of those as well. Is that a problem? No, not necessarily. Is that a problem if women are facing massive challenges and biases? Yes, that is a problem. But the fact itself is not the problem. It's just a circumstance, if any.
My observations are that more and more women are entering the industry and start to investing in the markets.
Yes.
Speaking of collaborations, you're friends with Alessio Rastani, and you two did a video together on crypto trading. What was the experience like, and did it influence your own trading approach?
Yeah, so first of all, if I may add really quickly what you said about more female traders entering, absolutely. I want to really quickly reiterate that I think we should always distinguish between female builders, so the ones that are building companies and that are kind of like in technical roles, the ones that are investing, maybe professionally, investing perspective, markets, and so on. And maybe the ones specifically, if we look at certain countries from what we call, actually, if we look at adoption rates of crypto and stable coins in countries like Nigeria and stuff like that, so many women are actually using crypto. Like 40%, sometimes the entire population is actually women. And it's often those women that are making the household financial decisions as well. So I always think that when we think about women's role in crypto, we should always look at what is their exact role, what are we speaking about. Now, to your question about Alessio, yeah, we made a couple of videos. We see each other sometimes, which is great. Obviously, he is doing technical analysis. I studied that as well a couple of years ago. I was reading multiple books. You see some of them behind me on Elliott wave theory and all the technical indicators. I don't think that I'm good enough of a trader to actually really successfully navigate the markets at this point, because I'm so busy. I'm working 7 days a week. But I would recommend everyone really to check out his offering. He had a new, very, very interesting course coming up as well for his members. And what I did take away from the couple of videos, I should add that we made together, because we made a few, and hopefully there are some more coming up soon, is that, like, you're entitled to your opinion. Like, you don't need to be an expert of like 20 years in the space to actually, you know, join someone's YouTube and speak about something if you're very, very informed about something. And yeah, I think, I don't know, you have your own YouTube channel, Boris, and I suppose that sometimes you also face criticisms from people, or people are kind of like implying things about you that may or may not be true. I kind of like realized to just let people talk. Like, I don't care a fuck, to be honest with you. Just beep that out, that I said fuck again.
Yes, of course. I think freely sharing your opinion is probably the most valuable in this industry. And one curious fact, do you know why they add women as an audience in the cigarette industry? Because that's how they increase demand by 100%. Alexandra, looking ahead, what is your projection for the crypto industry over the next couple of years?
That's a very, very broad question. I'm obviously very biased because I work in this industry, so I'm a full-fledged believer, and I don't care if Bitcoin is standing at 100K, 400K, or 50K, or 5K. Like, I sincerely don't care. I mean, of course I care because it impacts the space and how much liquidity there is. But from a ideological perspective, I believe in our industry. Now, what I think is really maybe interesting, my own assessment is, I've said it before, that the industry is very much professionalizing. So we see more and more, and everyone knows this, institutional capital coming in from the traditional financial institutions, right? Banks, pension funds, more and more companies investing in Bitcoin, either directly putting it on their balance sheets or via ETFs. Of course, we see worldwide more and more regulation. You can be in favor or against that, but regardless of my personal opinion, that is happening. And we see as well less, you know, and I think you know this too, less the traditional bull and bear cycle where you see Bitcoin and the alts following and whatnot. Like, you see more of a gradual kind of like increase. So where we've seen previous cycles with, you know, speculation and then industry falling again, we don't see that anymore. We see more gradual increase. And I was actually wrong about this. So last year, I appeared on Alessia's channel and we spoke about Plan B's, you know, assessment as to whether Bitcoin would hit, I don't know, 400K this year. And I thought personally that it still could be true based on my respect that I have for his analysis. But I kind of like underestimated the fact that where an industry is becoming more and more globalized and also subject to global markets and, you know, politics and macro matters, even though technical analysis won't agree with that. Yeah, that it's subject to more and more external influences that make that the fundamentals of the halving cycle that ultimately is pushing forward everything else, that those fundamentals maybe start to matter a little bit less in the grand scheme of things, if you can still follow me at this point. Sorry, this is the political scientist coming out.
And do you think we will see an out season this time?
I don't think so. I think that we will see maybe some top coins with decent increases, as we've already seen them, like since last year, you know, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, there has been some increases, but I don't think that we will see a proper alt season anymore. I think that time has passed. I think we will see some excesses. So what I mean is, let's say some coins that suddenly get very, very hyped on an individual basis, but I don't think that we will see the traditional alt season anymore. And I'm actually sorry about that because I have a portfolio too, you know. But I think that time has passed. Also because ultimately, I will add this, there are so many bullshit coins on the market that, you know, we don't need 79 billion blockchains and 79, you know, utility coins underpinning that. No, we're past that, sadly. So no.
Okay, technology is changing faster than our perception of it. How do you think artificial intelligence will impact the crypto industry and finance in general?
I think probably the answer here would be, but I'm not all knowing, is kind of like gradually and then suddenly, to just quote Hemingway. Oh gosh, sound like such a nerd. Just disregard all those books. Yeah. You know, I might have said that I studied AI a lot, and of course, it's a general purpose technology, just as blockchain is a general purpose technology. And of course, there where general purpose technologies are combined, new applications come together that we probably can't even imagine yet. Of course, we see so many trading bots and AI agents that are acting on chain and purchase and buy and sell, you know, assets and book your trips in crypto to, I don't know, your plane tickets. And if something hits a certain price, like I'm sure we will see more and more and more of that. I think honestly, in a few years from now, we'll probably not even call it AI anymore. Like what is ultimately AI? Define AI for me. There's not even a worldwide standard definition of AI, okay? We cannot even agree on that. AI is just automation that is getting, you know, implemented in systems that can reason to an extent, to a bigger or smaller extent, based upon priorly configured inputs that interact with external data and live data. So ultimately, what I mean to say is, yes, AI is converging with crypto and blockchain and whatnot, and all sorts of good or bullshit applications are coming out because it's a very, very hot narrative and investors invest in it. But ultimately, it's just automation. It's just improving of productivity. And my answer is that probably in a few years from now, we won't call it AI anymore. We will just call it smart applications or just, you know, technological advancements. AI is just what we can't really capture. Therefore, we call it artificial intelligence. In a few years from now, it's just something else smart that we invented as humans.
For me, AI is a reflection of humanity with more computing power. Finally, Alexandra, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone listening who's considering their first crypto investment or starting a Web3 project or any kind of project? And where can your audience connect with you or check your Truth application?
Thank you, Boris. I really appreciate all your questions and feedback. If you want to invest, I would almost say don't right now, and observe the markets first for a little while, for a couple of months. I won't say, oh, do your research first. No, just observe the markets as if you were invested in something, okay? I think that is extremely important. If we just think about trading generally, like there's so much human emotions coming in if prices go up or down, that actually make that so many of the investors, including myself, in the past and maybe still today, actually do lose money. Ultimately, the entire market is aimed at making some people that have less knowledge and less information actually lose, so that the big players with more information actually win. So just observe the markets, learn to control your emotions, and think if you want to, you know, invest on a centralized exchange, or maybe just open your own MetaMask wallet and do stuff on chain. Like in my opinion, we need to do more on chain. Yeah. Also, make sure to check out if you do have a little bit of money to spend, maybe invest in a startup and not in some random coin. So in that way, you build actual value, I would say as well. To that answer, if you want to start your own Web3 project, depends. Like I would say, make sure you have like a proper ID. Do, let's say, some research if there are competitors out there. What is your ID? What makes it different? Do you think that it can be a viable business? And don't underestimate, because it will either go well and then you basically don't have a life for a couple of years, okay? Because running a startup, like it's a massive thing to do, or things will go wrong and then you're basically stuck with a project and to an extent also a failure. And you must be able to handle that, like psychologically, because it's not fun to fail. And I know that myself from maybe still failing or having faced some failures. Lastly, if you want to get in touch, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn or write me an email or connect with me on the Thrilled app if you are also interested in Web3 more from a professional level. And that's it, I think. End of the rant.
Let me say something. Truth Lab is an application that will help every crypto project creator to find events, markets, and contacts useful for their project. And what you say, observing the market is perhaps the most valuable thing for every trader and investor. Thank you for this sharing with us. Alexandra, that was an incredible deep dive into Web3. Thank you for sharing such valuable insights with our Insider Club audience. If you love this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Insider Club. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.